The morning I caught my husband kissing my cousin, he was carrying the folder that held the mortgage pre-approval for the house I thought we were buying together. It was 7:52 on a wet Thursday in Chicago, and I was only on that corner because I had missed the red line by seconds. I had slept through my first alarm, burned my toast, and watched the train doors close while I was still halfway down the stairs at Belmont. At the time, every delay felt like one more small punishment in a week already crowded with them. By noon, I would understand that missing that train had saved me from signing away the next 30 years of my life. I was walking toward a coffee shop on Clark Street when I recognized Daniel's navy overcoat outside a glass office building. My husband was easy to spot because he stood very straight, even when he was tired, as though an invisible photographer might catch him at any moment. He had told me he needed to meet a client early. I almost called his name. Then I saw his hand slide beneath a woman's hair and settle against the back of her neck. The gesture stopped me. It was not flirtation. It was familiarity. It was the way he had touched me when we were newly married and crossing crowded rooms, a private signal that said, "I know exactly where you are." The woman leaned into him. She wore the camel coat I had helped her choose for job interviews, and one sleeve carried a faint coffee stain I had tried to remove in my kitchen. My cousin Vanessa turned her face, and Daniel kissed her. For several seconds, the city kept moving without me. Tires hissed over wet pavement. A delivery driver dragged a dolly across the sidewalk. A bus exhaled at the curb. I stood beneath a dripping awning and watched the two people I had trusted. Most hold each other as if I were already gone. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Daniel went pale. Vanessa stepped backward so quickly that her heel struck the building's planter. "Claire," he said. My name in his mouth made something inside me recoil. Vanessa opened her hands. "This isn't how we wanted you to find out." That sentence told me more than an apology would have. They had discussed how I might find out. They had imagined a version of this morning where they controlled the timing, the language, perhaps even my reaction. I looked at the red leather folder tucked under Daniel's arm. 3 nights earlier, he had placed it on our dining table and said our lender needed my year-end bonus statement before issuing final pre-approval. We had been saving for a house in Oak Park, somewhere with a little yard and a room I could turn into a studio. "What is in the folder?" I asked. He tightened his grip. "Work papers. You told me it held our mortgage documents." Vanessa looked at him. He looked at the street. That glance between them was intimate in a way the kiss had not been. It was the silent coordination of people who had practiced lying together. I walked past them into the coffee shop. Daniel followed me to the door, but I turned and held up my hand. "If you come inside, I will scream loud enough for every person in this building to learn why." He stopped. I sat at the farthest table and watched my phone vibrate across the wood. Daniel called 12 times. Vanessa sent 7 messages. "Please let us explain. We never meant to hurt you. It just happened." I stared at those words until they stopped looking like language. Nothing just happens for long enough to acquire meeting places, alibis, and a shared folder. A collision happens. A dropped glass happens. Betrayal requires a calendar. Vanessa was not merely my cousin. She had been the closest thing I had to a younger sister. Her mother, Aunt Laura, raised her alone in a small town near Peoria. When Vanessa came to Chicago 18 months earlier with 2 suitcases, $311, and no job, she slept in our guest room for 11 weeks. I revised her resume. I loaned her clothes. I introduced her to a creative agency that served several clients of the branding firm where I worked. When she received her first paycheck, she hugged me so hard that I laughed. "You saved me," she had said. She called me the sister life forgot to give her. Daniel and I had been married for 5 years. We met at a gallery opening in River North, where he noticed I had been studying the same small painting for 20 minutes. He was a financial analyst with a quiet voice and an impressive memory for details. He remembered how I took my coffee, which song calmed me before a presentation, and that I wanted northern light in the studio of our future home. 1 week before I saw him kiss Vanessa, he gave me a silver necklace with a blue stone for my 32nd birthday. "You're my forever," he said as he fastened it. Vanessa gave me a handmade photo album that night. It contained pictures of the 3 of us at dinners, concerts, and a weekend in Door County. I had thanked her for documenting our happiness. Now I realized I had placed evidence of my own humiliation on a shelf. After nearly an hour, I called my boss and said I was sick. Then I ordered a ride home. I expected Daniel to arrive later with a rehearsed apology. Instead, he was already sitting in our living room, elbows on his knees, eyes red. The red folder rested beside him. "I can explain," he said. I put my purse down and remained standing. "How long?" "Claire, please. How long have you been sleeping with my cousin?" He lowered his head. "About 4 months." The answer moved through my body like ice water. "Here?" His silence answered first. Only a few times, he said. When you traveled. I gripped the back of a chair. My travel had paid for our savings. I had flown to Dallas, Atlanta, Boston, and Seattle to lead client pitches because Daniel said my year-end bonus would finally make the house possible. I was earning the down payment, I said, and you were bringing her into our bed. I was lonely. You were always gone. Vanessa listened to me. For months isn't loneliness. It is planning. It started as a mistake. A mistake doesn't need hotel reservations. His face changed when I said that. It was only a flicker, but it told me there were hotel reservations. The intercom buzzed. Daniel stared toward the wall unit. Don't let her up. I pressed the button. Come up, Vanessa. She arrived wearing the coat I had given her for Christmas. Her mascara was streaked, but her hair was perfect. That detail enraged me more than it should have. She had found time to check herself in a mirror before entering the apartment where she had slept for free. I love you, Claire, she said. I never wanted to hurt you. Did you love me in my bed? She covered her mouth. Daniel stood between us. This isn't helping. You don't get to manage the meeting, I said. Vanessa looked at him, and he gave the smallest shake of his head. Again, they communicated as a team. Were you leaving me? I asked him. I didn't know what I wanted. That means yes, but you were waiting for something. No. One answered. I looked at the red folder. Daniel reached it before I did. Those are confidential client documents. You brought confidential client documents into our apartment? Claire, stop turning everything into an interrogation. For years, Daniel had praised my ability to ask hard questions at work. That morning, he made it sound like a defect. I walked to the desk and removed our lease. I had signed it 2 years earlier because Daniel's graduate school debt had damaged his credit. My name was the only one on it. Both of you leave. Daniel stared. This is my home too. Legally, it is my apartment. You can pack clothes for tonight. Anything else will be inventoried. You cannot end a marriage in one morning. I didn't end it. I missed a train in time to see that you already had. Vanessa began to cry harder. Where am I supposed to go? I nearly laughed. Even then, she expected me to solve her housing problem. Try the man you chose over the woman who gave you a room. Daniel shoved clothing into a duffel. Vanessa stood in the hall. Before he left, he pointed toward the necklace at my throat. I meant what I said on your birthday. I unclasped it and placed it in his hand. Then your words are worth exactly this much. When the door closed, I locked it and leaned against the wood. I did not cry. I could not. My body was still behaving as if danger were in the room. Daniel had left his personal laptop on the desk. I knew his password because it was the date of our first kiss. I did not search for explanations. I searched for evidence. The folder named Project North contained hotel confirmations, restaurant receipts, and email chains between him and Vanessa. The messages were not romantic enough to break me. They were logistical. Claire flies Tuesday. Use the side entrance after 8. She thinks the appraisal is next month. Then I found a message from Vanessa sent 9 days earlier. Once Claire's bonus hits, she'll sign the loan package. After closing, you can move the equity where we need it. I can't keep pretending forever. Daniel replied, she trusts me. We only need her income through underwriting. I read the exchange 5 times. They were not merely planning to leave me. They intended to use my income, my bonus, and my signature to secure a property before they did. The red folder was gone. My best friend, Maya, arrived 40 minutes later carrying bagels, bottled water, and enough anger for both of us. Maya and I had worked together for 8 years. She could sit through a 3-hour client disaster without raising her voice, but when she saw the emails, she swore so loudly that our upstairs neighbor stomped on the floor. Take pictures of everything, she said. Not screenshots. Photographs showing the laptop, the date, the files. Then email copies to yourself and me. We found charges on the joint card, restaurants in the West Loop, a hotel in Milwaukee, jewelry purchased 3 days before my birthday, and a $14,500 transfer to Haven Street Realty. The necklace was the guilt receipt, Maya said. The bracelet was probably for her. I looked down at the pale mark. The chain had left on my neck. That was when I finally cried. Maya did not tell me to calm down. She sat on the floor beside me until I could breathe again. Then she called her former college roommate, Rebecca Sloan, a family law attorney. Rebecca met us the next morning in an office overlooking the river. She was in her late 40s, with silver at her temples and a manner so precise it made Panic feel embarrassed to be present. No children, she asked. No, the lease is solely yours. What accounts are joint? I listed them. She reviewed the statements and the emails. The affair matters emotionally, she said, but Illinois is a no-fault divorce state. The money matters legally. The attempted use of your earnings in identifying documents may matter even more. From now on, you do not meet him alone. You do not sign anything. You preserve every message. I want him out of my life. Then first we stop him from taking more of it. That afternoon, I redirected my paycheck, froze additional cards, changed passwords, and placed a fraud alert with the credit bureaus. Rebecca sent formal notice that Daniel had no permission to use my pay stubs, tax returns, bonus confirmation, or electronic signature for any loan or lease. I called our lender. The representative hesitated when I gave my name. Mrs. Mercer, we have a meeting scheduled for 3:30 today. I did not schedule a meeting. There was a pause. Your husband uploaded updated documents this morning. My hands went cold. Do not process anything. My attorney will contact you. Daniel had not taken the red folder to work. He had taken it to a closing appointment. At 8 that evening, he tried his key 3 times. I had changed the lock. Claire, he shouted through the door. Open up. I kept the chain fastened. All communication goes through Rebecca. You froze our card. I couldn't pay for a hotel. Use your salary. Vanessa was a mistake. I love you. The mistake was believing I would never inspect our accounts. He struck the door with his palm. You're destroying your own family over pride. I recorded the entire exchange. When he left, he sent a message from an unfamiliar number. You always cared more about winning than loving me. I saved it. For 5 years, he had encouraged my ambition when it benefited us. The moment I defended myself, ambition became cruelty. Rebecca traced the $14,500 payment within 2 days. It was earnest money for a renovated loft in the West Loop. The purchase application named Daniel as buyer and Vanessa as intended occupant. My employer and salary appeared under household resources. A preliminary worksheet projected using my bonus for closing costs. They couldn't legally complete it without your signature, Rebecca said. But they were presenting your life as collateral. The application contained a scanned signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. The capital C curved the wrong direction. I signed hundreds of vendor approvals every month. I knew the movement of my own hand. I did not sign this. Rebecca's expression hardened. Then this is no longer only a divorce problem. I thought that was the worst discovery. It was only the first layer. I called Aunt Laura before Vanessa could reach her. She answered on the second ring, cheerful until she heard my voice. Vanessa has been involved with Daniel for at least 4 months, I said. I saw them together. Silence stretched between us. She told me you two were separated, Aunt Laura whispered. We shared a bed Wednesday night. My aunt began to cry. I am so sorry. I can't undo this, Claire, but I will not defend it. Did she tell you anything about a loft? Another silence. She said she and Daniel were investing in a property after your divorce. She said you agreed because you wanted the house in Oak Park. My knees weakened, and I sat on the kitchen floor. They had already built a version of my consent. The family meeting happened that Sunday at my mother's house in Lincoln Square. Daniel arrived with Vanessa because, as he said, they wanted to tell the truth without hiding. I arrived with Maya, Rebecca, and a binder. My mother, Ellen, had set out coffee and cinnamon bread as if hospitality could civilize betrayal. My younger brother, Noah, stood at the window with his arms crossed. Aunt Laura sat at the end of the table, looking 10 years older than she had the week before. Vanessa held Daniel's hand. We fell in love, she said. We didn't plan it. I placed the hotel receipts, transfer record, loan worksheet, and forged signature on the table. This was planned. My mother covered her mouth. Aunt Laura read the first page, then the second. When she looked at her daughter, grief had replaced confusion. Claire opened her home to you. I suffered too, Vanessa said. You don't know what it was like watching them pretend to be happy. Your suffering did not put you in her bed, Aunt Laura replied. Daniel leaned forward. The signature was only a placeholder. The broker said we could correct it at closing. Rebecca spoke for the first time. You should not explain potential fraud in front of opposing counsel. His face drained. Opposing counsel? Vanessa repeated. The divorce filing is ready, I said. Every dollar from the joint account is documented. Daniel turned toward me. I will repay it. Just don't frame this in a way that ruins my career. That was the moment I understood what he feared. Not losing me. Not injuring my mother. Not shattering 2 branches of a family. He feared being accurately described. You did not protect my career when you used my employer and income on that application. Vanessa pulled her hand from his. You told me she would never fight. Daniel glared at her. The sentence landed softly, but everyone heard it. What else did he tell you? I asked. Vanessa looked from Daniel to me. He said you were too attached to the idea of marriage to expose anything. He said if you found out, you would accept the Oak Park house and keep quiet. My humiliation deepened, but beneath it, something steadier formed. Daniel had not mistaken kindness for weakness once. He had built an entire plan on that assumption. You were both wrong, I said. I stood to leave. My mother followed me to the front porch. Are you certain? She asked. Cold rain had turned to thin snow. The new apartment keys pressed into my palm. I have never been more certain of something that hurt this much. For the next 3 weeks, Daniel performed remorse like a man auditioning for his former life. Flowers arrived at my office. He sent a 6-page letter describing therapy sessions he had not attended. He left a voicemail saying Vanessa had manipulated him because she envied me. Then Vanessa sent me a recording. Her message contained only one sentence: you need to hear what he says when he thinks I'm still on his side. In the audio, Daniel's voice was low and furious. Claire will cool down. She always does. If we can keep the lender from flagging the file, I can tell her the loft was an investment. Once the bonus clears, we move the money back. She'll never take this to my firm because it would embarrass her too. Vanessa asked, what about me? You stay quiet until I fix my marriage. You said you were leaving her. I said what I needed to say. The recording ended. I listened twice. It did not redeem Vanessa. It did reveal that Daniel had been betraying both of us in different directions. He had promised her a future and used her access to agency clients. He had promised me permanence and used my income. Love was not the center of his plan. Access was. Rebecca forwarded the recording to the investigator handling the forged document. She also issued a subpoena request for the broker's communications. Daniel responded by claiming his laptop had been accessed without permission and that I had manufactured context. For 48 hours, I doubted myself. Not the facts, but my ability to survive the fight. I could not eat. At work, a client asked whether I was all right, and I heard myself say I had allergies in December. My boss, Priya Shah, called me into her office. Take leave, she said. I can't. The Brightwell pitch is in 2 weeks. Maya can cover it. The suggestion felt like another loss. I had spent 9 months building that pitch. If I step away, Daniel wins another piece of my life. Priya closed the door. Then don't step away. But stop pretending strength means performing normally. Tell me what protection you need. I told her about the use of company records in the loan application. Within an hour, our general counsel preserved every download connected to my employee portal. The access log showed my bonus letter had been downloaded at 2:14 a.m. from our home IP address while I was in Boston. Daniel had used my password. There was more. The same session downloaded a confidential vendor list tied to a campaign Vanessa's agency had recently won. I had never opened that list from home. Priya stared at the screen. Claire, if this went to her agency, we have a data breach. The affair had entered my workplace before I knew it existed. Our company began an internal investigation. Vanessa's agency was notified because it served one of our accounts. She called me from a blocked number that night. You are trying to get me fired. I reported access to my employment records. Daniel said the list wasn't important. So you knew he had it? She went quiet. Vanessa, did you use information from my company? I used insights. Everyone does that. Did you know where they came from? You have everything. The career. The apartment. The family that praises you. I wanted one thing that was mine. You chose my husband and my work. He chose me. The words were triumphant, but her voice shook. No, I said. He chose whatever he could use. She hung up. The Brightwell pitch became my only stable place. It was a national campaign for a home improvement company trying to rebuild trust after a product recall. Irony followed me into conference rooms. I spent my days explaining that trust could not be restored by slogans, it required proof, transparency, and changed behavior. At night, I slept on one side of the bed as if Daniel still owned the other. I made coffee for 2. I bought his favorite pasta, saw it in my cart, and abandoned it near the cereal. Grief was not dramatic most of the time. It was muscle memory continuing after love had nowhere to go. Maya drove me to therapy. My therapist, Dr. Hall, asked why I kept describing every protective decision as revenge. Because they say I am punishing them. If someone takes your wallet and you close your bank account, are you punishing them? No, then why does protecting your identity become cruelty when the person who took it says he loves you? I wrote that question on a note and taped it beside my desk. Daniel filed a response seeking half the $86,000 in our joint savings and reimbursement for improvements he claimed to have made to the apartment. His list included furniture I bought, paint my mother paid for, and 2 custom bookshelves Noah had built as a wedding gift. He also claimed the $14,500 earnest money was a legitimate marital investment. He is forcing negotiation, Rebecca said. He expects you to pay for quiet. Then let's make quiet. Expensive for him. We prepared a detailed accounting. Every deposit, transfer, and charge was matched to a statement. My bonuses represented nearly 70% of our savings. Daniel had moved $22,000 through a separate account during the last year, not $14,500. The additional $7,500 had gone to a consulting company registered 5 months earlier. The company belonged to Vanessa. She claimed it was payment for legitimate marketing research. The invoices described financial sector consumer data, work she was not qualified or licensed to perform. Dates on 2 invoices fell during weekends when she and Daniel had been at a Wisconsin resort. The payments were disguised gifts. Rebecca smiled without humor. People who think they are clever often create better records than honest people. The discovery divided my extended family in ways I had not anticipated. Aunt Laura never defended Vanessa, but 2 older relatives insisted the situation should remain private because young people make mistakes. One uncle called my mother and suggested I accept repayment without involving employers or attorneys. He said scandal would follow Vanessa longer because women were judged more harshly. My mother put him on speakerphone without warning me. So Claire should carry the damage because strangers may judge. Vanessa, she asked. I am saying family should protect family. Claire is family. He had no answer that did not reveal the hierarchy beneath his concern. Vanessa was to be protected from consequences. I was to be protected from nothing except the reputation of being difficult. That evening, my mother came to the apartment with containers of soup. She stood in the doorway of the empty guest room, where the outline of Vanessa's old bed remained, pressed into the carpet. I keep asking whether we failed her, she said. We helped her. Sometimes people act as if those are the same thing. I understood what she meant. Vanessa had learned that someone would always rescue her. Daniel had learned that I would always organize the mess. Both treated care like an endless natural resource rather than a choice another person could withdraw. My mother touched the doorframe. When you were 14, your father forgot to pick you up after debate practice. You waited outside the school for 2 hours and then apologized to him for being upset. I should have noticed how often you made other people's failures easier for them. My father had died 6 years earlier. Remembering him was complicated because love had softened the sharpest facts. Dad wasn't Daniel. No. But you learned early that being easy to love meant being easy to disappoint. Her words stayed with me. I had thought my marriage worked because Daniel and I rarely fought. Looking back, I saw how often peace depended on my quiet adjustment. I traveled when his schedule demanded it. I delayed painting because he disliked clutter. I paid more of our expenses while calling the arrangement temporary. He had not created my instinct to accommodate, but he had studied it. The next setback arrived through a letter from Daniel's attorney. He accused me of illegally accessing his laptop, distributing private romantic communications, and damaging his employment. The language was cold and official. Even though Rebecca had warned me it might come, seeing myself described as an aggressor made me nauseated. Can he sue me? I asked. Anyone can file a claim, she said. Winning is different. The laptop was left in the marital residence, you had authorized access during the marriage, and the material showed misuse of joint funds and your identity. We respond calmly. Calmly became a word I resented. Daniel was allowed to create chaos, while I had to earn credibility through perfect restraint. One Friday, I found him waiting near the entrance to my office garage. He did not approach until I was alone. Just give me 10 minutes, he said. I stepped backward and opened the camera on my phone. You were told not to contact me directly. Rebecca is turning this into a war. Rebecca did not forge my signature. I didn't forge it. The broker generated the form. Then why did you say I authorized it? He rubbed both hands over his face. Because I knew you would say no before you understood the opportunity. The sentence was so revealing that I almost lowered the phone. You believed my consent was an obstacle to manage. I believed once the investment made money, you would be happy. An investment where Vanessa lived with you. It did not start that way. Nothing ever starts the way you later need to describe it. He glanced toward the garage cameras. I am losing my job, Claire. I lost access to my own identity in my own home. You can recover. You always recover. There it was, the logic that made hurting me acceptable. My competence had become his permission. Security arrived after Maya, watching from the lobby, called them. Daniel left without resistance. I sent the recording to Rebecca and sat in my car shaking so badly that I could not insert the key. Maya climbed into the passenger seat. You did everything right. Then why do I feel terrified? Because doing the right thing does not erase what happened. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. For weeks, people had praised my strength. Maya was the first to give me permission to be afraid without treating fear as failure. That weekend, Noah installed a camera outside my apartment and repaired the studio bookshelves. He rarely discussed feelings directly, so he measured walls, tightened screws, and brought a new deadbolt. I should have seen him, he said while leveling a shelf. I lived with him. I didn't see him. He always made jokes about your job. What jokes? Noah hesitated. At Thanksgiving, when you took that client call, he said the rest of us were supporting characters in the Claire show. I remembered returning to the table and finding everyone quiet. Daniel had kissed my cheek and said they were discussing football. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought it was marriage stuff. I thought you knew. Secrets survive partly because every witness assumes someone closer has already named them. Noah set down the level. I am telling you now. He resented every room where you were respected. The statement hurt, but it also corrected something. Daniel had not betrayed me because I traveled too much, painted too much, succeeded too visibly, or failed to listen. He had enjoyed the benefits of my strength while resenting that it proved I could exist without him. Dr. Hall asked me to list what I believed I had done wrong. I filled 3 pages: missed dinners, impatient replies, business trips, forgotten errands, nights when I chose sleep over intimacy. Then she asked which item justified theft. None. Which justified deception? None. Which prevented Daniel from asking for counseling or leaving honestly? I stared at the pages. None. Then those may be ordinary imperfections inside a marriage. They are not causes of another person's strategy. I tore the pages out of my notebook, not because the imperfections were false, but because I no longer wanted them presented as evidence for the defense. For the Brightwell presentation, I flew to New York with Priya and Maya. It was my first trip since discovering the affair. Entering a hotel room alone triggered a memory so sudden that I had to sit on the floor. I pictured Daniel and Vanessa using my travel calendar like a permission slip. Maya knocked 10 minutes later. She did not ask why I had not answered her text. She sat beside me on the carpet and opened the room service menu. We can rehearse here, she said. I am supposed to lead tomorrow. Leading can include eating French fries on the floor. The next morning, I stood before 14 executives and delivered the strongest presentation of my career. My hands stopped trembling after the first slide. When the chief marketing officer asked how a company could ask consumers to trust it after concealment, I answered without looking at my notes. You do not ask them to forget. You show them that the truth can survive inspection. Priya glanced at me. She knew the sentence belonged to more than the campaign. We won the account 8 days later. Then the broker produced his emails. Daniel had told him I was traveling and had authorized him to sign preliminary documents for me. The broker, anxious to close, accepted the explanation. But one email changed the entire case. If my wife hesitates, Daniel wrote, remind her the Oak Park offer expires Friday. She thinks the funds are reserved for that property. There had never been an accepted offer in Oak Park. The house Daniel took me to 3 times was never ours to buy. The seller had rejected our preliminary inquiry months earlier. Daniel kept arranging viewings through an acquaintance so I would continue believing our savings had a shared destination. I remembered standing in that empty kitchen while he wrapped his arms around me from behind. Imagine Sunday breakfast here, he whispered. He had already started sleeping with Vanessa. The false house hurt more than the hotels. Adultery destroyed my memory of the past. The house had been designed to steal my future. I drove to Oak Park alone and parked across from it. A family had moved in. Through the front window, I could see paper snowflakes taped to the glass. A child in red pajamas ran past carrying a wooden airplane. I cried until the windshield blurred. Then I noticed a for sale sign 2 blocks away. The house was smaller, with green shutters and an overgrown yard. For a wild second, I imagined buying it immediately just to prove Daniel had not taken the dream. Then I understood I did not know whether the dream was mine. I had spent years shrinking my preferences into plans that made him comfortable. I drove home without calling the realtor. The internal company investigation concluded 6 weeks later. The vendor list had been sent from Daniel's email to Vanessa's private account. Vanessa used details from it in a proposal that helped her agency win a competitive campaign. Her agency terminated her. Daniel's firm suspended him because he had shared information involving one of its clients and because of the document investigation. Vanessa blamed me publicly. She posted a long message claiming an influential relative had sabotaged her career after a private family disagreement. She did not name me, but she included enough detail that relatives and coworkers knew. Within hours, people I barely knew were debating my marriage beneath her post. Some called her brave. Others called her a homewrecker. A stranger sent me a message asking whether I had been cold in bed. I wanted to answer every lie. Rebecca advised silence. Evidence is slow, she said. But it ages better than outrage. My silence infuriated Vanessa. She posted photographs from my birthday album, cropping Daniel out and describing me as controlling. Then she made a mistake. She uploaded a screenshot of a message from Daniel to prove he had told her our marriage was over. The timestamp was visible. He sent it while seated beside me at my mother's anniversary dinner, 6 weeks before the affair supposedly began. The screenshot also displayed the header of an earlier message: "Send the Brightwell numbers when Claire leaves." Maya saw it first. We preserved the post before Vanessa deleted it. That became the third major reversal. Vanessa's attempt to control the story publicly supplied evidence that the data theft had been deliberate and that the relationship began earlier than either of them admitted. The agency's attorney contacted Rebecca. Facing a claim from my employer, the agency wanted Vanessa's cooperation. Vanessa agreed to provide her complete message history in exchange for the agency not pursuing her for all its legal costs. The history revealed 11 months of communication. Daniel had begun cultivating her 2 weeks after she moved into our guest room. At first, he sent supportive messages about job interviews. Then he complained that I cared more about work than family. He told Vanessa I mocked her behind her back. He said I planned to ask her to leave without warning. None of it was true. Vanessa responded by defending me at first. Over time, she began sharing insecurities. She hated comparing her unstable life to mine. Daniel praised her spontaneity and called me rigid. By the time they kissed, he had spent months turning gratitude into resentment. She was responsible for every choice she made. Still, the messages exposed Daniel's method. He did not fall into an affair. He engineered loyalty by feeding 2 women different versions of each other. The most disturbing exchange concerned my birthday. Vanessa asked whether the blue necklace was too much. Daniel replied, "It keeps her calm. The bracelet is what matters." My gift had not been guilt. It had been management. I took the necklace from the evidence bag and placed it on the table during mediation. Daniel sat across from me beside his attorney. He looked thinner. His expensive haircut had grown out around his ears. For the first time since I had known him, he seemed unable to arrange himself into competence. "I made terrible choices," he said. "But 5 years should mean something. They mean you had 5 years to learn what I would survive." He looked at the necklace. "I picked that stone because it matched your eyes. You picked it because you thought it would keep me calm." His expression told me he knew I had the messages. Rebecca presented our settlement terms: repayment of all diverted funds, no claim against my lease or personal property, responsibility for the debt attached to the loft application, and withdrawal of his demand for half my bonus-derived savings. His attorney asked for a private conference. When they returned, Daniel leaned toward me. "If you push this, my firm will know everything. Your firm suspended you 3 weeks ago. They do not know about the signature. The investigator does." He stared at me as if I had broken an agreement. In his mind, marriage still required me to protect him from the consequences of harming me. "You would ruin my life?" I placed the necklace between us. "I am refusing to let you finance it with mine." He accepted the financial terms that afternoon. The forged signature inquiry continued separately. Because the loan never closed and the broker had ignored warning signs, the final outcome was less dramatic than television would make it. Daniel entered a diversion agreement, paid restitution and fees, completed community service, and accepted a formal finding that made future work involving sensitive financial records difficult. The broker lost his license for a period. No one went to prison. Real consequences often arrive as locked doors rather than handcuffs. Daniel resigned before his firm could terminate him. Vanessa moved back to Peoria after losing her job and most of her professional network. For a while, I heard through relatives that they remained together. Then Aunt Laura called me. "Vanessa found messages to another woman," she said. I closed my eyes. I felt no satisfaction. Only recognition. "Is she safe?" I asked. "Yes." She left. "Good." Aunt Laura came to Chicago the following weekend carrying a cardboard box. Inside were the scarf I had loaned Vanessa for her first interview, a spare key to my apartment, and a photograph of us beneath the Cloud Gate sculpture on the day she got her job. "I found these in her room," my aunt said. "They are yours." The scarf was a gift. She said she can't look at it. Aunt Laura's eyes filled. "I don't want to hate my daughter. But I won't lie about what she did. You don't have to choose me to say it was wrong. Sometimes choosing what is right means someone feels you did not choose them." We hugged and cried in my kitchen. Losing Vanessa was not simply losing a cousin. It was accepting that the sister I thought I had never existed in the same way for her. Daniel kept writing for months. "I am in real therapy now. Vanessa never meant what you meant. We could still buy a house someday." The last message made me laugh for the first time without sadness. He still described the house as though our plan had suffered a scheduling problem, not as though he had tried to purchase a separate life with my identity. I never replied. The divorce took 7 months. My marriage had ended on the sidewalk, but the legal process ended on a bright June morning in a courtroom, where the judge spoke our names without knowing how many versions of them had existed. Outside, Rebecca handed me a certified copy of the judgment. "What will you do now?" she asked. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt tired and strangely light. "Go to work," I said. The Brightwell campaign had survived the investigation and our pitch. In fact, it won the largest account our firm had signed in 4 years. Priya promoted me to senior brand director. "You seem like a different person," she said when she gave me the news. "No," I answered. "I think I came back. I used part of the raise to convert the guest room into the studio I had always postponed. Daniel used to say my canvases made the apartment feel crowded. I painted the walls sage green, bought a wide table, and covered one entire wall with color. The renovation was harder than buying furniture. Every object forced a decision I used to make by predicting Daniel's reaction. I stood in a lighting store for 20 minutes holding a brass floor lamp because he would have called it impractical. Then I bought it. I chose linen curtains instead of the gray blinds he preferred. I hung a framed print above the couch without measuring whether it was perfectly centered. The apartment did not transform overnight into a symbol of freedom. Some evenings it was simply an apartment where I ate takeout alone. Once, while sorting a kitchen drawer, I found a grocery list in Daniel's handwriting. Milk, coffee, lemons. The ordinary intimacy of it brought me to my knees more quickly than any love letter could have. A marriage contains thousands of harmless artifacts that do not know the marriage has ended. I kept the list for 2 days. Then I placed it in the trash and carried the bag outside before I could rescue it. Maya organized a painting night in the new studio. Priya brought wine. Noah brought a toolbox even though nothing needed repair. My mother painted a lopsided blue bird and insisted it looked intentional. We crowded around the wide table, bumping elbows and laughing when Maya spilled green paint on her sleeve. At one point, I stepped into the hallway and looked back. The room Daniel said would be too full was holding every person who had helped me survive him. It was not crowded. It was alive. I understood then that space had never been the real argument. Daniel wanted a home arranged around his comfort, just as he wanted a marriage arranged around his needs. The canvases bothered him because they proved I possessed an interior life that did not require his approval. After everyone left, I did not clean immediately. I let the brushes rest in jars and the unfinished paintings cover the table. Disorder no longer felt like failure. It felt like evidence that something was still being made. That night, I opened the window despite the cold. The city sounded different from the studio, buses braking, neighbors talking, a dog barking below. For years I had treated silence as proof of peace. Now I knew a quiet room could hide a lie, while a noisy room could hold the safest life I had ever known. The first painting I completed showed a wet Chicago platform, a train disappearing into gray morning, and a woman standing still beneath the lights. From far away, she looked abandoned. Up close, the silver rails curved toward an opening in the sky. I began running along the lakefront before work. At first, I could manage 1 mile. Then 3. Then 5. Every step reminded me that my body could carry me away from any room where I was not respected. I learned to make 1 cup of coffee. I moved to the center of the bed. I donated the pasta Daniel liked. These were small acts, but a life is mostly small acts repeated until they become identity. Vanessa asked to see me once, almost a year after the morning on Clark Street. She waited outside my office in a plain black coat, thinner and older. Around the eyes. "I am leaving Illinois," she said. "I wanted to apologize to your face." "I have heard apologies. Daniel told me you were leaving him. He said you only wanted the house before making it public. And you chose to believe the married man who needed you to hide." She looked down. "I know. Did you know about the forged signature?" "Not at first. I knew he wanted your bonus. He told me you had agreed to invest. You saw the messages where he said I trusted him." Her eyes filled. I wanted the version that made me less horrible. It was the most honest thing she had ever said about the affair. "I envied you," she continued. "Everyone said Claire would fix it. Claire would know. Claire would help. I thought your life came easily because you never showed what it cost. So you decided I owed you pieces of it?" "No. I decided that then. I know better now. Knowing better after losing everything is not the same as choosing better when it matters." She nodded. "I miss you." The words hurt because part of me missed her too. I missed the young woman who sat cross-legged on my kitchen counter, rehearsing interview answers. I missed laughing with her in the dressing room as we searched for a coat she could afford. But memory was not evidence of safety. "I miss the cousin I believed I had," I said. "I don't know who you are now." I did not insult her. I did not embrace her. Il était à livre. Several months later, Maya introduced me to Aaron, an architect who restored old neighborhood theaters. On our first date, he asked about the paint beneath my fingernails. I expected him to tease me. Instead, he wanted to see my work. We went out 3 times, then 5. He did not rush me. When I said I needed a weekend alone, he did not turn my boundary into an accusation. Kindness felt suspicious at first. Therapy taught me not to confuse unfamiliar with unsafe. Almost exactly 1 year after I missed the train, I returned to the coffee shop on Clark Street. I ordered an Americano and sat at the same table in the back. Outside, office workers moved beneath umbrellas. Students ran for buses. Couples argued, laughed, separated, and found each other at corners. The city did not remember what had happened to me there. I found that comforting. My phone vibrated. Aaron had sent a message. Still on for dinner tonight? I looked through the window at the place where my marriage had broken open. Yes, I wrote. I would love that. When I left the shop, a train was pulling into the station. I climbed the stairs without running. The doors remained open long enough for me to step inside. As the city slid past, I understood that I was not grateful for the pain. People romanticize suffering because they prefer lessons with clean edges. Betrayal did not make me stronger by itself. It made me frightened, sleepless, suspicious, and ashamed. What made me stronger were the choices that followed: calling Maya, telling the truth at work, protecting my name, sitting in therapy, painting again, and refusing to purchase peace with silence. If I had caught the earlier train that Thursday, I might have signed the papers that afternoon. I might have spent years untangling a property bought with a forged version of my consent. I might have kept making coffee for a man who was designing my replacement and calling it an investment. I did not lose a perfect life. I lost a beautifully staged lie. Today my apartment is crowded with plants, canvases, friends, and northern light. My career no longer becomes smaller to keep a man's ego comfortable. My savings belong to the future I actually choose. I still carry scars, but I no longer carry shame for wounds someone else created. Loyalty is not measured by how much betrayal you can endure. It is measured by the respect you show yourself when the people you love decide your trust is something they can spend. That morning, I thought I had missed my train. In truth, I arrived at my own life exactly on time.